Hi everybody, so I'm Ashley Davis Bush and I'm just delighted you all are here. And I'm going to just do a little talk about the book and how it came to be, how sort of some of the story behind it, and I'll talk about some of the contents. I'll share a few of the ideas in it, and then we'll open it to questions and say goodnight. And I'm here to sign books. So I also just want to say thank you to Water Street Bookstore for having me. And it feels like a celebration for me because 20 years ago, 1997, I moved to New Hampshire. 20 years ago, I gave birth to my third child, who's now 20. And 20 years ago, my first book was published, which is Transcending Loss, and I had a book signing here. So they have some of my books over there. This is actually my 7th book to come out. And I've had, I believe I've had a signing here for every single one of them. So, and several times over through the years. So this feels like coming home. It's just a special place, and I appreciate the support that I've had through the years from Water Street. So thank you for coming to this sort of anniversary reading. So I guess I want to share a few things about that this is very timely. And I didn't realize how timely it was because this was written before a certain presidential election that we will not discuss in great detail, but I've noticed that since that election, there's so much anxiety in the air. People are afraid, people are nervous, we don't know what's happening, there's a lot of anxiety. I hear it in my office. I'm a psychotherapist, for any of you who don't know, and if you're interested, I have a card if you want for yourself or someone you know. I practice in Epping, and I do hear more about anxiety that's almost in the air, more than I used to hear about. And I also looked up a statistic to share with you that now, oh yes, there it is, that 90% of medical visits are stress-related, which is interesting. 90% of visits to doctors are actually tagged in one way or another as a stress-related event. So stress, anxiety, it's out there, it's in the air, it's sort of something we breathe. And if we're not intentional about trying to counteract that and trying to keep ourselves grounded and basically resourcing inside our own well of inner peace, we're going to be in trouble because we can get swept along with these currents. And one way to do that and to try to counteract it is the media. I will have to say, even though the media got some of you in here, the media can be very toxic. And I say to people, you shouldn't be listening to the news after 7 p.m. If you are, you're likely to start having insomnia problems and nightmares. So don't listen to the news after 7 p.m. So the little book, I'm so happy with the way it came out. It's just such a pretty little book. And as I was telling Dawn, who's also a writer, we've got several writers in the audience here, I was actually asked to write this book, which was really exciting because for most writers, if you've ever written and tried to get published, it's a series of sort of asking/begging people to publish you and hearing a lot of thanks but no thanks, thanks but no thanks, thanks but no thanks. This was published by a UK, English, British publisher, and it was the funniest thing. On December 30th of 2015, so a little over a year ago, I got an email. I'm like, who sends emails on December 30th? It's the last day of the year. And it was a publisher that said, are you interested in writing this book? I thought it was a joke at first because I thought, who would send this email on December 30th? But it turned out to be real. They actually have a series already. There's the Little Book of Mindfulness, the Little Book of Gratitude, and now the Little Book of Inner Peace. They also have, I believe, the Little Book of Crystals and maybe a few others. So it had been selling well for them. The Little Book of Mindfulness in particular was a bestseller, so I thought, this could be interesting. And when I heard it was short and little and they only needed a 10,000 word manuscript as opposed to like an 80,000 word manuscript, I thought I can do that. So sure enough, and I had it to them within 5 months, and they had it out within 6 months after that. So it was released in the UK in February, here in April, and it's already in 5 translations, which is very exciting too. French, German, Spanish, Norwegian, and Swedish. So that's the pitch on the Little Book of Inner Peace in terms of how it came to be. But the reason I got on their radar is that 10 years ago, I wrote a book called Shortcuts to Inner Peace. And so that's I can't even believe that was 10 years ago, but that spawned a paradigm shift that I'm going to share with you, because it really got me onto this idea of little is more, less is more, what is sometimes called in neurobiology or neuropsychology the law of little things. And that's the idea that something short, something simple, something easy and quick is incredibly powerful. And when you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, you initiate long-term change. So I'll be saying more about that, but when I wrote Shortcuts to Inner Peace, I immediately started taking that concept and applying it in other venues. So then I wrote 75 Habits for a Happy Marriage, which was basically taking Shortcuts to Inner Peace and applying it to couples. And then I wrote Simple Self-Care for Therapists, which was basically ways to bring those same short, little, less is more practices into a work environment. And then Hope and Healing is a daily meditation. So it's not so much small practices, but it was the same idea of less is more. Just read something small every day as opposed to trying to read a chapter book, especially when you're bereaved. So this is yet another continuation on the same concept that I'm not the first to come up with it, but I got a hold of it 10 years ago and basically continue to reinvent it because it's so powerful. So what do I mean by that? About 10 years ago, I was sitting with a client and I was talking about, meditation. We all know meditation's amazing, but she's like, I'll never do it for 40 minutes a day. And exercise is incredible. She said, I'm never going to take time to do 30 minutes every other day for exercise. Yoga, she said, I'm never going to go to a 1-hour yoga class. I don't have time for any of this. I work full time, I have kids, I'm busy. So I said, well, do you have time to use the bathroom? And she's, yeah, I do. I said, do you have time to shower? Yes, she does. Do you have time to eat? Yes. So I said, well, let's come up with things that you can do during things that you're already doing. So when you're in the bathroom, something to do when you're washing your hands. When you're in the car, something to do at red lights. When you're brushing your teeth, something to do when you're brushing your teeth. And so this was born, this law of little things, just something simple, something quick, something easy. And then the science totally backed this up. That the whole idea of neuroplasticity, which is the idea that your brain can change over time in positive ways, that you can direct it to change, is that you want to have repetitive behaviors and then you create new grooves. It's kind of like if you're a skier, which I'm not, but you go down the same path, the same ruts are being created in the snow. So you want to have something simple that you can do repetitively, and you actually start to rewire your brain in new neural structures that are for the best. Sounds pretty good, right? So yes, so I'm a big believer in less is more. I'm also kind of lazy, so less is more, because it's just easier to do short, simple things. So the idea of this particular book, in some ways it's kind of a distilled highlights of all those other books I was mentioning. These are sort of like the best ones, the best practices. But I want to just give you my take on what inner peace is. So a lot of people think, well, I can't really be peaceful / happy unless all the circumstances in my life are just right. That my relationships are going well, my finances are going well, my work life, my kids, my health. When all those pieces are smoothly working, then I can be at peace. Well, that's very nice, and I'm certainly not knocking good circumstances. I think any of us would agree it's better to be healthy than sick, it's better to be happily married than not, or partnered. It's better to have your career on track than to be unemployed and desperate. Good circumstances, favorable circumstances are wonderful, but if you have to have those in order to be at peace, you will be in trouble. Why? Because life is life. Life will throw you curveballs. Life has troubles, challenges, there's sicknesses, illnesses, death, and on and on. So the idea is, how can you be anchored in spite of your circumstances, no matter what? And I really believe, and I'm going to just read this definition. At its fullest expression, deep inner peace is a response to life, a compassionate, rooted awareness that is independent of external circumstances. Like the ocean depths, inner peace is expansive and stable. With practice, you can learn to quickly leave the choppy, wild waves at the surface and dive into the calm deep. You can learn to fill your days with the unflappable experience of peace. Isn't that nice to know? That it's possible, that it's actually already there inside you. You just need to learn to dip into it. You need to learn how to access it. And my suggestion is that these practices, especially when they're used daily, repetitively, over and over time, they will get you to that anchored place. So let me share a few of them with you. And I'm going to just kind of read them because this is a reading. Let me also just tell you how the book is broken up, because I sort of, when I was thinking about how to break it down, I wanted to hit what I think are, these chapters really reflect different aspects of inner peace. So the first chapter is about being grounded and rooted, this idea of just you are anchored no matter what. The second chapter is on relaxation practices, how to just hit the pause button and relax even if there's a storm raging around you. The third chapter is on equanimity, which is basically being non-reactive so that you're not just like a ping pong being blown in the wind. You have equanimity. The fourth chapter is about acceptance, which is really the idea of it is what it is. You hear that expression a lot, of just this is what it is. And acceptance does not mean there can't be change. It's a little bit like the serenity prayer. God help me accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. But even change ultimately comes out of acceptance. You have to start with where you are, what is actually reality. And what I say to my clients is, when you resist what is, you are sure to suffer. So the opposite of acceptance is resistance, that it's always going to create suffering. So acceptance is a chapter. Chapter 5 is on gratitude practices, and that gratitude is really, I think, kind of the foundation of inner peace, learning to be grateful for things, even when times are tough, to really saturate your whole lens, the way you see the world, with gratitude. Definitely leads to more inner peace. Now, chapter 6 is about compassion. And of course, the first of that would be compassion for yourself. To actually, there's several self-compassion practices in here for basically being on your own side, having your own back, caring about yourself. And that ultimately, when you live in a place of compassion for yourself, you're able to radiate that out with compassion for other people. And the last chapter is basically, I call it beyond yourself. It has to do with getting out of yourself, connecting to something bigger than yourself. So there are some spiritual overtones to that, but it could also be, for people who are uncomfortable with spirituality, the idea of nature, the idea of a cause bigger than yourself, just getting out of yourself. And that all those components, when you add them up, they are what really sort of create the fertile ground for spiritual, I call it spiritual, but you could use other words, of an inner peace that just is easy to flourish when you add all those components. So let me give you an example of a practice. So this one I call the calming breath, and it's in the relaxation chapter. Okay. It is quite natural to encounter specific situations that trigger anxiety. Some common circumstances include going to the dentist, speaking in public, meeting your boss, undergoing a medical procedure, or flying in an airplane. A situation that makes us feel vulnerable or afraid is likely to unleash a cascade of anxious symptoms: heart palpitations, sweaty palms, shortness of breath, abdominal distress, and catastrophic thoughts. However, each of us has a portable, powerful antidote: the breath. Intentional breathing is a deceptively simple yet powerful ally for awakening feelings of inner peace. And fortunately, your breath is ever present. It's always with you. So this easy practice calms the mind, body, and spirit. So I'm going to read the instruction. I'm going to invite you all to do it right now so you kind of get a feeling for it. There are quite a few breathing exercises in this book, but this one is one of my favorite because it's just so easy. So get yourself comfortable. Relax. So I'm going to suggest you close your eyes just so you can kind of listen to the words in a way that you're not distracted by visuals. Relax your jaw. Bring your fingers to your lips and breathe in a deep, low belly breath. Touching your lips is known to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural pause button. Now place your hands in your lap, palms up, and breathe normally. On the in-breath, say or think the words, breathing in, I am calm. And on the out-breath, say or think the words, breathing out, I am relaxed. Follow the sensations of your breath as it moves in and out of your body. So breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I am relaxed. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I am relaxed. Breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I am relaxed. Good. You can open your eyes when you're ready, back in the room. I find that I go into that one automatically when I'm nervous. I just immediately, breathing in, I'm calm, breathing out, I'm relaxed. Particularly at the dentist, I will admit, I'm one of the people that doesn't really particularly like dentists, so I'm doing that a lot. I hope no one here is a dentist, actually. I don't mean to offend the entire dental profession. But yes, so I invite you to experiment with that one. And if those words don't resonate for you, of course you can create your own. And all of the practices are that way. You can adapt them as necessary. Okay, another one that I'd like to share with you is called Morning Thanks. This is a gratitude practice, and it's basically designed to start your day with an infusion of gratitude. Most people, when they wake up, they'll look at the time and they might either think, oh no, I've overslept, or oh my God, it's so early, or morning already, or that was a short night. My sister likes to say, she's a teacher and she's been teaching for 30 years, so she's a little bit seasoned / ready to retire. And so she told me that if she wakes up and the first thing she thinks of, is it the weekend? And then it's like, yay! And oh, it's a weekday, ugh. And I told her, I said, you need to stop doing that because I suggest you try gratitude first. And so this practice is basically based on the idea of the Jewish practice called Modeh Ani, which is that when you wake up in the morning, you immediately give thanks that you have another day to be alive, that you have the grace and the privilege of being on this planet for one more day, that you survived the night, that you got to open your eyes, that you get to have a day. So let's see, what have I written here? The moment when you first wake up, before you even get out of bed, is a key time to shape your mood. You could think of all the things you have to do in the coming day, or you could think of all the things you get to do in the coming day. You have the power to set the tone. Will your day be a burden or a blessing? The Jewish practice of Modeh Ani is a morning prayer of thanksgiving for the gift of another day in which to live. This simple and beautiful ritual serves as the inspiration for this practice. So I suggest you put a post-it note somewhere where you'll see it first thing in the morning, maybe by your bed if you have a clock. Although I have just become aware that a lot of younger generations, they don't have clocks by their bed anymore. They have their phone. All right, so put the post-it on your phone or on your clock or on the books that are stacked by your bed or your Kindle or whatever's there that says, I give thanks. So that when you wake up in the morning, you see it. And it's one of the first things you're going to see. I give thanks. What I also suggest to deepen the practice is while you're still in bed, you put one hand on your upper chest and one hand on your belly. That is a position of comfort, and it has to do with when you're an infant and you're being held, your whole torso is being held by the adult. So think about if you're holding an infant, they are kind of there in that range from your upper chest to your belly, and when you are an infant, that's your whole torso is being hugged and held. So when you automatically put your hands there and apply some pressure, especially when you're lying down, you can't help but have an unconscious feeling of comfort. I did have one woman challenge me on that because she had issue putting her hands on her stomach, which was actually interesting because she felt fat. So if that's the case, I would say work with someone around that, because this really, this should be a comforting pose. And if you really can't put your hand on your belly, put your hand on your thigh or something else. Or come see me if it's really hard to touch your belly, and we'll work on it. Then you breathe into your hands and you say the words again, I give thanks. And then you try to allow the feeling of gratitude to flood your body, to actually feel it, to not just be thinking it at that point, but to be feeling it, to have it infusing inside your body. And Rick Hansen, who's one of my favorite people in the field who talks a lot about restructuring neural networks, he wrote a book called Buddha's Brain. He talks a lot about practices to rewire the neural system. And his thinking is that there's a difference between just naming something and experiencing something. That if you just name it, you create a state, perhaps, but it's not infiltrating into a trait. And you want, as much as you can, to have positive states become positive traits, because positive traits are really more about you. They're your personality, they're who you are, not just a temporary moment-to-moment state. So this concept is that, again, not just thinking, I'm grateful, but trying to feel it, trying to move it into the body, to breathe it in, to think about, what does it mean to be alive today? What does it mean to have another day to live? What would it mean if you weren't here to have another day to live? To actually have it sort of absorb, almost like you're a sponge and you're absorbing the gratitude. That when you do that, it's going to take you further in terms of both feeling it, experiencing it, and having your neural networks bond. They say what fires together wires together. You want it to wire together so you're just in general more grateful and more at peace all of the time. It starts to become your default setting. So really all of these practices, I would say, if you do them over time and you do them consistently, they start to become your default setting as opposed to just a momentary fleeting thing that you're trying to achieve. Does that make sense? It's good stuff, actually. All right, let me do one more. And let's see what chapter. This is in the compassion chapter. So this is called the butterfly hug. And I'm going to teach it to you. It's basically, it comes from the tradition of Emdr, which is a trauma treatment. It originally started as a trauma treatment, and now it's applied in many, many different settings. Emdr stands for Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing. And what it had to originally do with is your eyes going to the right, left, right, left, right, left. The woman who discovered it realized that it has a calming experience on the body, and also it moves emotion and unlocks neurological trauma in the way that the way that eye movement, what's that, when you
Hypnosis.
sleep? No, it's when you sleep.
REM.
REM, thank you. I'm getting my E's and M's and R's all mixed up. Yes, the REM sleep, which is when your eyes are closed but your eyes are moving when you sleep, and that actually is critical for sleep, for actually restorative sleep. They've done sleep studies, not that I'm an expert on sleep studies, but trying to wake people up before they could get into the REM, and they don't have restorative sleep. They wake up exhausted. So the point is, there's something about the eyes moving that is restorative and necessary for processing in our body systems. They don't even 100% know all of why, we just know that that's true. So EMDR is a treatment really for unlocking trauma, but also for processing emotion and healing. Now the butterfly hug is not using eye movement, but it's using what's called bilateral stimulation. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to read you a little bit about it. So you're going to put your hands up like this, kind of link your thumbs, and then you're going to put your hand on your chest here. Okay, so yeah, so turn it towards you. And now, yes.
Oh, cross.
So cross your hands. Sorry.
Cross,
Yeah. Cross your hands. Have the palms towards you. Put them on your chest. And what you're going to do is alternate right, left, right, left, right, left. And just get a pace that feels nice for you. And you can just breathe deeply. So what this does is it creates some compassion for yourself. And it's also calming. And you can do it for a while, you can do it briefly, but I'm getting so calm I can't talk. So when you need some self-compassion or you need to calm yourself down, butterfly hug. Now let me tell you how it was originally created. The butterfly hug was developed by Lucina Artigas, who worked with survivors of Hurricane Pauline in Acapulco, Mexico in 1997, which I just realized was 20 years ago. There's that 20 themes repeating itself. So it has a calming effect because you're doing what we call bilateral stimulation. You're stimulating both sides of the body. And what they started to do in that hurricane situation afterwards, they found that children especially liked the butterfly hug, that they were able to respond to it a little bit more easily than the EMDR, the eye movement. But now it's basically a way to anchor self-comfort and self-soothing. So it's a self-compassion practice that I like to recommend. So you can see those practices that we went over, they're all very simple, the breathing in and out, the butterfly hug, and what's the other one?
Gratitude.
What?
Gratitude.
The gratitude. I give thanks. That they're easy to weave through your day, they're short, they're simple, but the amazing thing is that they're so effective. They're deceptively effective. Everyone in there is tried and true and tested. They come from all sorts of traditions of, like I said, of the EMDR, of gratitude practices, of breathing, of yoga, of just basic good mental hygiene. So I love them all. I practice them all. I keep this by my desk at work so I can flip through it and do a few. Some of them are more body-based and physical. Some of them are stretches. I have stretches in there, different poses. So I'm just really excited to share it with people. It's also a great size to put in your purse or your satchel or your wherever you are, and it makes great gifts. And I'm very pleased to launch it into the world, and I hope it will help people, because I really do think now more than ever people are stressed, they are anxious, they are confused. And of course it's easy to think we need that, that, and that for everything to be okay, but I would say you need to be anchored in here for everything to be okay. And then the rest will figure out. But it really starts with being grounded in yourself, and then you radiate that out and share it with others. So, thank you all for coming out tonight and being here. It's really been a pleasure. What about some questions, comments, thoughts, your own experiences with things like this? What are you thinking about? What's on your mind? Yes.
So I'm finding myself wondering about adaptation for use with children. And it seems like these would be very teachable.
I think
kids.
I can't even think of one that wouldn't be useful for children. Yeah. And like I said, the butterfly hug really caught on quickly for children. So that's the beauty of it. These are all very simple. So we could call it the Little Book of Inner Peace for Children, too. Maybe that. Yeah, so they are all very useful for children. I think what's great about working with children is that if you can teach the younger generation how to anchor themselves and have tools for self-soothing and for basically getting through life more easily, like, wow, it would be really exciting to see that move on, so that maybe people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s aren't struggling, that really it should be taught in school for kids, come to think of it. Yeah. Do you want to teach in children's schools?
No, I work with children, but you know, one of the things that's talked about a lot with kids now is teaching them self-regulation, how to go from being anxious or frustrated or upset and to calm themselves back down again.
Yes.
And it looks like this would lend
Well, the
itself
butterfly
really
hug
nicely
is
to that.
very much that. Yeah, the whole self-soothing, self-regulating, that's a really important skill for people to learn.
Yeah, just that nugget of competency that a child can shift their emotional state, and also that they have the confidence to do that. If I'm upset, I can take care of that without necessarily going to drugs or lashing out in some way.
Yeah, or just being really reactive, or needing someone else to do it for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, that just reminded me when my oldest daughter was in kindergarten, she used to have temper tantrums. And the teacher said, well, what do you do when she has the temper tantrums? And I'm listing, I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. And she said, why don't you let her start to manage it? You know, this idea that she needs to learn to manage it, not me manage it for her. And so you just brought that memory back. that ultimately, you know, it's certainly, we know that we're social beings and that we respond well to other people soothing us and comforting us, and there's nothing wrong with that because we're wired to attach. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's you and you. So to the degree that you can help self-soothe and self-regulate yourself, you're ahead of the curve. Yeah. Other thoughts? Hi.
Hi. Do you think affirmations are the most powerful way to be more grateful?
Well, that's very interesting. Affirmations from what I can tell, there's a little bit of controversy about affirmations. Some people love them, and some people feel that they're not getting to the unconscious, that they're too surface. So if I just say, you know, I'm terrific, if I don't really believe I'm terrific, it's just going to be like a, you know, nothing. Like, I'm terrific. No, I'm not. So that until you can start getting to the unconscious programming. On the other hand, there's this whole idea of fake it till you make it, or act as if. So I'm a little believer that different things work for different people. So some people can really get motivated and feel good about affirmations. I think they certainly don't hurt. At the very least, they might not be super effective, but I still like them. But in terms of gratitude, I try to help people notice what they can actually be grateful for, so that it's not just faking it, like, oh, I'm really grateful that I have a great job, and then they're like, no, I don't, I have a horrible job. But maybe you could go to your job and say, well, I really like my one coworker, or gosh, I love this window in my office because I can see this beautiful lilac tree out there. So to start going more micro, what is it you can be really grateful for? Like, maybe I'm sick right now, but I can be grateful that there's electricity, or I can be grateful for the nurse who's helping me, or I can be grateful that I have neighbors bringing me food. So to focus and hone in on what's actually happening in your life that you can really, truly be grateful for. And I think we often miss the small things, in other words, to really microtize. What does it mean to, you know, be able to walk? As far as I can tell, no one came in here in a wheelchair, so we're all walking. Like, what a miracle. Or, you know, warmth in the New England winter. Can you imagine the people, the early settlers here who didn't have electricity? Oh my gosh. So when you really start, or heavens, you know, when we have a storm and we lose our electricity, everybody's very grateful for electricity for about 2 days, and then we forget. But indoor plumbing, so to really microtize. And in fact, I mean, that's the beauty of all these practices, is that they're micro things. It's a micro scale to create change. Because we often talk about macro change, you know, big things and big lifestyle changes, and those can be great, especially if you can implement them, but sometimes they feel overwhelming and you don't do anything. You get paralyzed. So micro movements are helpful. So, I'm not sure if that totally answered your question, but I went on quite the diatribe about gratitude. Yeah. Other thoughts or comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Does a person's health health-wise enter into the well-being?
Well, health is wealth. So it's certainly, as you came in a little late, and we're glad you're here anyway, but what I was saying in the beginning is that circumstances, if we only wait for circumstances to be perfect, then it can be hard. If we need those things to happen in order to be at peace or to have inner peace. So would we prefer to be healthy than sick? Yes, but even when you're sick, you need to find ways, and there are ways, to dive into your own wellspring of inner peace. That you don't have to be healthy in order to be at peace. It's certainly desirable, and I really do believe health is wealth, and to the best of our ability, we certainly want to encourage and facilitate our own health. But it's amazing, I'm sure some of you have known people who are sick, people who are dying even, who do not have health, but they radiate and glow a peacefulness, an acceptance, a kind of calmness. Not everyone, of course, but that's what this is all about, that any of us can be ridiculously nervous and anxious and freaking out if we, let ourselves. So all of these practices are about being intentional, to say, I don't want to be a crazy person in the storm. I want to be anchored and at peace. And you don't have to be a Zen monk to have it. You don't have to shave your head. You don't have to do anything particular, join an ashram, meditate all day. Maybe those things are helpful, but it's possible even in the midst of an ordinary life with sickness and health, with troubles, with sorrows, with joys, with average ordinary life experiences, you can cultivate and be intentional about having more peacefulness in your life. And these practices will help. I'm very grateful you all were here tonight. Thank you for coming out. And I wish you all peace.
Thank you.